Hi guys. I'm just sitting here doing some work. It's been a long day. Um, it's been a really long day. One that I love. Started off really, really nice with my daughter and my grandbabies. And then clients, which I also love. And then it ended with a meeting with my marketing manager. All around my branding, my business. So I just ate after, and what time is it out here? It's after 11 out here, 11:26. Can you imagine just eating after 11? Yeah, so it's been a long day, and if somebody would have told me when I decided to start my business that I would go through almost 7 years of so many twists and turns, I would have told them they was lying. I probably would have never started. But praise God, I didn't know because I started. But yeah, with this rebranding, it's a lot. It's long time. It's a long time coming, and I think what helped me make a decision to rebrand was after a year of working in a certain position, coming out of entrepreneurship full time and working for an organization for a year. What a dreadful year, but it made me to really look at and value what I am, what I bring to the table, my integrity, and being exactly who I say I am, in your face and behind your back, right? But it wasn't until last year November that I decided I was going to come back full time, and that's what I did, come back full time. And I said, you know what, it's time to rebrand because there are so many things I do, and I said, let me change. But I'll say this, from the day I opened up my doors as under construction, which will shortly be formally under construction, but from the day I opened up that door and had my office space, I would never forget it, and started working with all the professional women and their families, victims of domestic violence. I was just, wow. I never imagined I'll be here today. But that journey, this has certainly been a journey from working with women, victims of domestic violence, as I'm a survivor as well, prior to my marriage, and to now working with couples, working in organizations, and just helping people to shift the way in which they communicate. That's basically what it is. And it's just a lot. So one of the things that I found today talking to my marketing manager is that colors and logos and all of these things that you have to think about when you want to take your business to the next level. And I'm very, very picky. So I can decide on one thing and do something different. And that's what I've been doing. So now I'm sitting here trying to fine-tune some of the programs in which I'm preparing, which I'm fine-tuning right now. And it just brought me back to when I started, And when I started while I was actually working with the offending population. And I said, I'll do this part-time, just something on the side. And it wasn't probably a year later that I resigned from that position and started full-time, because I didn't realize how many professional women, and of course I know this happens, but how many professional women were actually challenged in abusive relationships, right? And not just physically abusive, because so many people think it's just physical abuse, but emotionally abusive and every type, financially abusive, spiritually abusive, and all other abuse, right? So when I started back then, it was like, wow, this is nice. I had my name, I had my logo, I had everything set up that I thought I needed. Wow. And then 7 years later, a lot that I thought I knew, I'm still learning. I actually just finished Brown Rehab with Ronnie Brown, and that was a phenomenal life changer. Our last session was Wednesday. And it's so many things that I didn't even realize, didn't even know I had to do, and I'm doing, right? So hats off to Ronnie Brown for that, because that girl she's a genius. And everybody in our group was like, wow, we learned from each other, we talked, we're so open. It wasn't nobody being catty, it was just everybody being sincere and just like, I need help, and how do I do this? So that was life changing for me as well. But now as I shift into my new business and my new name, that will be coming up shortly, just keep watching this space. Although this is not my business page, that's something I learned too, but although this is not my business page, this is my personal page, my business page will start in another, I'll give it about 10 days for things to start shifting, when I have the various links to my programming that I'll be doing and so forth. But as I'm sitting here, I'm just putting together one of my giveaways for you guys. And I'm just looking and saying, wow, look where I started. And the amount of times that I felt like giving up. The amount of times when I say, oh, wait a minute, I don't think I wanted do this. The amount of times when I had clients that they wasn't a good fit and I had to fire clients. Yeah, you have to do that sometimes. The amount of times when people wanted my services and couldn't afford to pay me, and for whatever reason felt it was okay to say, oh, well, I can't afford it, or I can't believe you're charging that much, but yet they'll go somewhere else and pay that money, only to find they return to me, right? It's amazing the amount of things I'm seeing, the amount of times I've seen people wanting to collaborate with me, and when you look, they're out there doing what I was supposed to be doing, or we talked about doing, and they jump to do it. Of course, they're not doing it now, right? Because one thing I do know is when God gives you a vision, it's yours. No matter who tries to duplicate it, it's your vision, right? So all of those things I've had to learn, the amount of times people smile in your face and all excited in front of your face, but not knowing how many people you know, even how many clients you have, only to find out that I've had clients and people, friends and family tell me things people said around the table about me in a negative light. It's just truly amazing. And so many people have quit because of that. But I'm not a quitter, you know. I'm one of those people that when I set my mind to something, I do it, and I would do it scared. And half the time, if I'm scared, I don't realize I'm scared until after I've done it, right? So I know God has called me to do what I'm doing, and I will continue to do it and trust Him. But there's so many things we experience, you know. My gosh, this has been a 6.5, 7-year journey of just a lot of stabbing in the back. People, nice people too. I've met some truly, truly amazing people. I've met some people that are successful businessmen and women that I've learned a lot from. And one of the things I've learned from a lot of people that's successful is when you feel like you have failed, or you feel like the job or your business hasn't went according to how you wanted it to go, that's the time you don't give up. You may take a little seat and say, you know what, I'm not sure, but you never ever give up. And that's something I haven't done, right? I see the empire I'm building, and I know where I wanted to go. And it doesn't matter how many times I fall down, like I used to tell my offending clients, no matter how many times you fall down, as long as you got legs, you can get right back up. So that's exactly what I do. I practice what I preach. But yeah, this has certainly been a journey, and I see a lot of posts. Entrepreneurship's not for the faint at heart. It's not. And I'll tell you what, if you start and you're faint at heart, that heart will become so hardened to your focus that would even change. You know, so tonight I just want to encourage somebody that might be feeling that they want to do something, or they want to leave a relationship, or they might have made a wrong decision, and they're afraid to, you know, backtrack, or they're afraid to shift. Follow your heart, you know, follow your heart. When I started my business, I started with a logo, Takia. Oh my God, what's Takia's last name? She's super, super, super amazing. I can't get Takia's name. Wait a minute. And I don't like that, so I'm gonna look it up right now. But yeah, I remember when I started my business, and I had Takia. Give me a second. I had Takia. TK Consulting. Here we are. Give me a second. I hate this. I had Takia Lamb. Sorry, Takia, if you're listening. There's so many names in my head. I remember when I first started my business, and Takia built my website, and she did my first logo, UK. It was just simply UK. And I had, I knew my vision, I knew what I wanted, and I shared her, and she brought it to life. She was very patient with me. We went through a lot of different changes, but she gave me a website and a logo that was like to die for at that time. And that was during the time when I was working with victims of domestic violence. But along the way, we change, we shift, we hear about different people and want to give other people chances and, all those things. But I say that to say it's been a journey, and a journey in which I really, really cherish. Right? And I remember when I started my business with domestic violence, and then I found that a lot of women that I was working with needed me as the general coach, because a lot of them walked away from these domestic violence relationships. And so now here I am coaching them to have better relationships and to learn and to understand some of the things in which they need to know that I wish I knew as a teenager and my early 20s. And so working with them was really as a coach, because I got trained as a coach many, many years ago, right? Way before. And did I get it before I got my degrees? I think somewhere during my degree, can't remember. But back then, a lot of people didn't talk about coaching like they do now. So here we are, right? But I say that to say there was a lot of what I was doing at that time to help people to just get better relationships so that they can, know their worth and be in relationships to know their worth, right? And then over the pandemic, I found that I was getting more husbands and men calling me to work with the partner. Some had made a lot of mistakes and was so afraid of losing them that they called me. And then some who just wanted to get better in the relationship. And I commend those guys. I commend you guys, because it took a lot of courage for you to do that. Over the pandemic, I really learned so much more about men. And newsflash for you guys, right? Majority of my professional career, I worked with men offenders. My caseload sometimes was 70 men at a time. So a lot of what I worked with was men. I heard every story, every relationship, every family, everything about them I knew. And so when I get people saying, well, what do you know about working with men? Right? So majority of my professional career as a criminal justice, I have a master's degree in criminal justice, right? So was with men, offending men. So I know a lot. But I say that to say I went through that over the pandemic. So I was now working with domestic violence victims, women, and couples. And then in 2021, I took on a job as an executive director for an organization. And just a year. But it was during that time that I recognized that as an entrepreneur, I had a certain level of integrity for how I wanted to present. What you see with me is what you get, right? And I knew during that year journey that wasn't going to be a long journey, right? And I also learned a lot about people, women more so. Wow. Those in which I had worked very closely with, not clients or anything, just people in professional realm. I learned how feisty they can be. I learned how they smile in your face, and then when you turn your back, half of them, they wouldn't even allow you to turn your back. And I'm not just talking about, I'm talking about every culture, black, white, and the other. People that acted like they was caring for you, people that acted like they was your mentors, your friends, your colleagues, and they were the quickest ones to slice your throat. So during that year, I learned a lot. I saw a lot. I have kept a lot to myself, even though I hear a lot about myself from people that you wouldn't expect that will say these things, right? But they do. But I've learned a lot. And so during that year, I recognized that it was time for me to pull up the stakes and get back into entrepreneurship and just genuinely help women and couples to have better family lives, better relationships. And that's what I do. So I resigned from that job, and then last year, November, I came back full time, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And, it's funny because I'm also an accredited mediator, right? I got trained in London and Oxford, to be honest. And it was something because working in the environment that I was for that year, it's amazing how God lines us up. Let me just go back. It's amazing how God lines us up to what He'll have us to do. So it was during that year that I saw so much conflict in situations. I actually dealt with some conflict in situations. I've had people shouting and talking to me like I was absolutely nothing, right? And this has nothing to do with the fact that I was an executive director. No. Just as a human being, as a woman. And my staff had recognized it, had seen it, right? And wondered, how did you manage this so well? So it was during that time I recognized and said, oh my goodness, so many people, the amount of calls I used to get, the amount of times I used to get people who call me that knew me to come in and mediate certain situations. And so it was during that time that I activated my skill sets. And so I was also mediating. So when I started in November, I started more so doing mediation in organizations and just going in, and I still do it. I still do workshops. I still get calls for it. So I love it. I love presenting, and I love helping people to communicate better, ultimately, right? And so it wasn't until, that was November last year, it wasn't until this year, I think February, when I said, you know what, I need to get back into coaching couples and women full time. That's my gift. I do it with my eyes closed. That's anybody I've worked with will tell you that's my gift, right? And it's funny because I've been coaching people in relationships. The other day I was trying to memorize everybody, and I got up to like 520 people. And it's amazing how long that has taken me. A few months where I'm just jotting down everybody who I've talked to about their relationships. And even when I was going through my crazy relationships, prior to my marriage, I thought about all the people that I had coached over the years. That's always been my gift, right? People trust me. They tell me their business, and I help them with it. So in November, I started my business full time. I was doing more mediating. I was getting a lot of contracts for mediation. And it pays really, really well. So that's a good thing. If somebody wants to get involved in it and know your craft, know how to operate, you'll be really good at it. But it wasn't until February this year. And I said, good Lord, I'm going in circles. What's going on here? And then I had some people saying, well, my goodness, what are you doing? 1 minute you're doing this, next minute you're doing that. Well, guess what? When you become an entrepreneur, you will find that you will try whatever you feel you're supposed to do at the time. Sometimes it doesn't work because the business is not there. And sometimes it works, but your heart's not in it. For me, I've done really, really well with business, even whether it was a paid job or mentoring, because I do mentor women as well, younger women. And but you have to do what you feel like on your heart, right? You have to trust yourself. So when people say to me, my goodness, Tina, what you doing now? Your worship, I'm not doing nothing any different. I've always, from day one working with victims of domestic violence, when I started my business, I've always helped people to better communicate, help people to better express how they wish to communicate, help people to recognize or identify what they want their communication to look like, helped people to mediate or to negotiate and manage conflict resolution. I've done that from day one. So there's nothing I'm doing any different. It's just now being labeled or brand it differently. So in the next few weeks, I'll say next weeks, but next 10 days, but in the next few weeks, you're going to see exactly what it is that I'm doing. And that has a lot to do with relationships. Well, that's just what I love to do. I'll still be doing my services as it relates to mediation and stuff, but I'm following my heart, right? I'm following my heart, and that's what I'm doing. This is a lot, you guys. The other night, I was up from, I think, 11 to 4:30 a.m. changing, updating everything that goes on my website, the wording. And while I've hired people in the past to do it, I can hire somebody to do it, but I've done it. And because it has to come, because this is what I want to do. I also had somebody the other day say to me, Tina, I really admire you. So I said, you admire me? Yeah, because for somebody in the 50s to get back out, resign from a job, a leadership position, that I've been a leader for years in my role. So that's just a job. That was just a job, right? It wasn't what I thought. And that was it. So I have to do what I want to do, right? But you resign from a position to come out and do entrepreneurship. You're not afraid? I was afraid taking that role on. I've been afraid taking any role on. But you have to do it scared, right? And doing what I want to do, I'm not afraid. You know, I think too, I don't think I look at my age. I go 52, but who cares? That's just the age, honey. As long as you're breathing, as long as you have life, you have breath, you can do whatever it is you want to do. Whenever, if God allows you to wake up every day, use that opportunity to do what you feel that you've been called to do. I know what my purpose is, and I think a lot of what happens is people don't know their purpose. And so I advise you find out your purpose today, because once you find out what your purpose is on this earth, honey, there is nothing or no one that's going to stop you from getting to where God has called of you to go, right? And I will be going there. But yeah, it's just been so much. My gosh, this is a lot. So as I'm finishing all of this stuff, I just thought I'd jump online real quick and just encourage somebody. The other thing I wanted to make mention of is trust yourself. You know, a lot of why we don't make the moves we should make is because we don't trust ourselves. We trust other people to dictate our lives. And I think I've done it too. Many of us have done it. You know, entrepreneurs, right? Even in relationships, you know, we trust somebody else. Now let's take it a little step further with the relationships. Many of us get in relationships with the expectation that we're going to get what we need from these people, right? We walk into relationships broken. Half of us haven't healed from the previous relationship. And God forbid it was a horrible relationship, unhealthy relationship. And then for some of us, we had parents or family members or neighbors that nobody had decent relationships. So we're all coming from dysfunction, right? So now we're walking into these relationships expecting that these men or women give us just fulfill all of our needs, only to find out that most of them are broken as well. So I encourage all of you today that are seeking wholeness in a man or a woman, first make sure you seek that in yourself, right? And that's the same with entrepreneurship or anything that we do. You have to be confident in yourself, within yourself. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you roll up with. I remember when I went away to school, to university, and I remember so many people saying to me, are you sure you want to do that? I think I was married 4 years. I can't even remember how long I was married. I was into marriage early on, first couple of years. And so many people said to me, you sure you want to do that? Because you know what happens when you leave your husband to go off to school. Most times they mess around or you find somebody else and you break up. And I remember saying, I am so focused. Thank God my husband knew my girls. My husband, everything I'm doing, my husband knew when he met me. But like I say, I remember saying, if that's what my life's supposed to look like, that's what it will be. Well, guess what? I also knew that I was going to school. As a young teen mom, And I ended up with two children in my early 20s. So I'll tell you this, I knew years ago that I wanted to go off to school. Because of my boldness and my trusting in myself, I did it, right? So same thing with my business and anything else, right? Sometimes you just have to trust yourself and not lean on somebody else. I knew that I was married, and I knew what marriage meant, which meant commitment. If that wouldn't have worked, guess what? I would have walked away with a degree either way. Had I not run away to school, I might have not had a degree. And my husband could have still done the same thing. You get what I'm saying? So, same thing with business. Anybody's business could fail. Whether I'm almost 52 or not, anybody's business can fail. It can fail in the beginning stage, it can fail in the mid stage, it can fail toward the end stages. But guess what? You would never know unless you do it. But you have to have the courage and the boldness to do it. You have to trust yourself enough to know that you can manage it, right? So for all of you out there that's in these relationships too, and you're expecting all of these feelings, you're expecting them to fulfill a void in your life. Honey, if you haven't filled that void, if you haven't worked on, and half of you don't even know what that void is. You just know that you want somebody in your life. And most of you will do whatever it takes to keep it or to have it, right? Stripping yourselves to the bone to be in these relationships, and I guess that's partially why I've taken this turn again to focus in on helping women and couples to have better relationships, because I find that many of us sell ourselves short, right? Especially if you come from bad relationships. So I walked out of an abusive relationship before I met my husband, right? I was far from whole. My good Lord, I'm talking about him is 30 years ago now, but I was one broken little chick. I went from a guy that lied every time he opened his mouth, had every girlfriend, because we was old punks, right? So had every girlfriend under the sun, lied about them. They was whores and hoes and liars, which in actual fact, he was the one doing it, right? The amount of women that wanted to fight me, the amount of times I wanted to fight somebody, all of those things I went through, right? As a young girl while being abused. Can you imagine? So now I leave that relationship to go to my husband, which was a total different person, altogether much more matured, right? He was still a guy. He was a single guy, so I'm sure he done what he had to do as well. But I know a lot of what happened in our relationship in the beginning was because I was a broken person. I was insecure. And it wasn't nothing to do with my outer appearance. I knew I was always a very attractive young lady. That's something my mom instilled in me from young. So rather the Pope told me I wasn't attractive, I wouldn't have believed him, right? That's why you got to instill that in your children. It's hard sometimes. They don't believe it, but I believed it, right? But I was one broken young girl. I was an adult by that time. But I remember meeting my husband. Because I was so broken, I took so much of my ill baggage into that relationship. I was looking at him. I was accusing him. Everything that I had experienced in my past relationship, all of a sudden, he became him. He wasn't him, but he became him. I was so disconnected. Then I became more so verbally abusive or aggressive toward him. All because of my past, right? God forbid. Thank you. He was an abusive guy, but God forbid he was, right? God forbid if he was, because I would have been all to pieces. But he wasn't. And so I thank God too for him because of his calm nature. He helped me to actually recognize. He told me many times, "Who do you think I am?" And I was like, oh my God, maybe something must be wrong with me. So I had to become whole as well, right? So full speed ahead. All of my experiences, like many of yours, are who got you to where you are today. So when people say to me, Tina, how could you be in your 50s just jumping up and going right back into entrepreneurship full time? Tina, how could you be in your 50s to make these decisions, to do this? And you're just so bold, so courageous. What do I have to lose? If you know where I came from, and that's only a snapshot, but if you knew where I came from, you'll know that It's only two things going to happen if I don't do it. I would never know. And if it doesn't work, guess what? I'll recalibrate. I'll rebrand, right? So you just do what you have to do. But I'm thankful that my businesses, I have never turned back because something hasn't worked. With me and my business, I think I've turned back. I've changed things because I got burnt out as it relates to domestic violence. I don't do that as much. I still get calls from people that are trusting of me, and I do sometimes. But over the pandemic, it burnt me out. So I got so many. I'm in a one-man show. Honestly, I got burnt out so much, and thankfully, I knew two other private women that do, professional women. I got burnt out so much that it impacted my mental health. So as a result of that, I don't focus on working with victims of domestic violence as I did anymore. Because I believe your passion has to be, for me, my passion has to be there. I don't want to ever get to a place of where I'm feeling like, because we could only do so much, you know? So yeah, so that's how I got to this point. But yeah, for those of you who have a passion in your heart and you've always wanted to do something, and you haven't done it because you're wondering, what if? What if? Well, you know what happens if you do nothing. You never know if it works, right? You're not doing it. So, but what if you do it and it works? And working is spending each day focused on making your business or your brand a better brand than it was yesterday. You know? Or you want to go back to school, or you want to go to school, or you want to go to another country. You know, you want to get a divorce, you want to get married, like, because it's not working or it's not what you want. You know, I mean, go for it. You want to change careers. You know, you want to resign from your job, but you're scared to resign, but you feel like God's telling you to resign because something else is better for you. But you're so afraid because you're looking at your paycheck. You know, I've always made pretty good money, right? Always. And guess what? That's never been my leading factor, ever. I've never made a decision based on money. And some people say that's wrong. But for me, I want to be happy when I get up mornings. And if I start feeling like dragging my feet and I don't want to go, there's no amount of money in the world that can keep you there, right? So whatever you feel like you want to do in your heart of hearts, do it, right? Now, I think I've had my, debrief. One of those things we used to talk about when I used to work at the prison. We used to debrief and just let it all out amongst others so we can help each other think. Well, tonight I'm letting it out just to let it out, right? That's something that's very healthy, also a therapeutic process, right? So let it out. And for those of you who want to do something different, but you're afraid to do it, what is going to happen if you do it? What can happen? You would never know, would you? So just go for it, right? And those of you who's in these relationships and you're trying to make these relationships something that they're not, let's not point our finger toward our partner. Let's point the finger back toward us. What are we lacking? What do we need to do more for ourselves? Where do we fall short? And where do we need to pick ourselves up, right? I often say this. You know, so many women out there doing so many things, you know, competing with other women, competing with other men, couples, you know, relationships. It's just a lot. It's a lot, right? I remember when I was a teenager and I was in that relationship. And I remember when I used to hear about other women. Let me stop saying women. We were all girls. When I used to hear about all the other girls. And people used to say, well, Tina, why don't you do this? Why don't you try that? To keep them. I was never that person. That's why I knew I'm so unique. I was never that person. You got somebody else? She's doing jackknife twists and standing on her head. Guess what Tina's going to do? Nothing. I've never been good at competing with people. Ever. So I know myself, right? And that's why it's so important to know yourself. Know yourself. If I launch my new branding and everything next week and my sales don't go how I think they should go, I'm not going to close up my doors. I'm just going to reroute. That's it. And that's how life is. If one thing don't work, try another. I put on so much weight a few years back. I said when I went 50, I wanted to lose 50 pounds. I lost 50 pounds. I didn't do it on my own. I got a dietitian and all sorts of support, right? See, that's one thing about me. I'm not afraid to just say what it is because I knew that wasn't my area of expertise, right? But I did it. Whatever I set my mind to, I do it. And you could only do that when you're focused on what it is that you want. Many of you have girlfriends or mates that dictate your life because they don't think you should. Oh my goodness, I heard somebody say it. This didn't work. Get rid of them. Please, get rid of them. I have a few very good friends, but I have more. My first cousins, basically, my good friends, right? They could even get on my nerves sometimes. My sister, for one, is my best friend, right here, my mom, and my daughter, now that she's an adult. But I say that to say, I don't have people around me like that. I don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. Can you imagine if you sat there and listened to every negative thing somebody said about a dream or a vision or a goal that you have? You would never amount to anything that you want to amount to, right? So today, I just encourage you to don't die wishing that you did. Die knowing that you've done everything that you set your heart to. I'm one of those people. I wouldn't do it. I do it, right? Blue dry my hair. Look at this. Next week, you may see me with long hair. You know what I mean? Like I do whatever I want. I'm just always been that person, right? But one of the things I do is take care of my family. I'm a family person. So my mom, my children, my husband come first. My grandchildren come first and foremost before anything, right? I would climb to the sky, and you can't reach that. I'll climb to the sky to make sure they get what they need and they're fulfilled and full and whole, right? And then comes everything else I want to do, right? So on this Friday night, I'm going to hang this live up, and hopefully I've encouraged somebody to do something that they thought they probably couldn't do. And oh my goodness, is this, let me see. It looks like her. Yeah, do what you feel you have to do. And guess what will happen? You'll surprise yourself. And if it doesn't work the first time, try it again. If it doesn't work the second time, how you wanted it to, try again. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, try it again. And each time you try it, you become better in your attempt to get to where you want to go, right? So don't give up. Is that you, Karen? I think it looks like you. Maybe it is. Hi, my dear. I hope the boys are well. Yeah, so, follow your heart and do what you got to do. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I always say, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody talk about you? They do that anyway. No matter how good or bad you're doing, somebody's going to find something to say about you, right? Or it doesn't work right the first or second, third, fourth, fifth time. Just keep going. And you'd be surprised at the end result. Okay, so have a great evening. Lord knows I might come on and talk about something else tomorrow, but I'll tell you what, I'll be doing this much more, right? I paid for that training I done the other day, and it wasn't $5. So I believe in get my money's worth, right? So I'm going to put everything into practice that I learned to do as it relates to my brand rehab. I did the program with Ronnie Brown. Just phenomenal. And listen to me, after almost 7 years of being in business, and I've had coaches, I've had marketing, branding, I've had all sorts of people on my journey. And guess what? I've learned so much of what I didn't even think I signed up for. I met some amazing women. Oh my gosh, I met some amazing women. So it's just been a journey. So I'm looking forward to my new colors, my logo. Today we just finalized my logo. My marketing manager, he was like, so what do you think after the 15th or 20th time? And I said, let me see. Yeah. And so I've got that. My colors, we're going up shortly. I hope it looks just as nice as it look on my website as it does just looking at the color patches, right? And then my services. That's not going to change much, but I'm just fine-tuning and breaking some things down. Okay, guys? So I'll be talking to you guys soon. Enjoy the remainder of your evening. Be safe. Don't do anything that you'll regret tomorrow. And if you do, pick yourself back up, brush yourself off, and keep it going. Talk soon. Bye.